So it was incredible in my year off when I got accepted to OCAD as a 37-year-old student. And I knew things had come around for a reason. And that's when I wrote my first short story. And my first short story, I had never written a short story before in my life. I took that writing course and it was wonderful, and the writing instructor had told us to bring an object that was really important to us and to write around it. And I didn't know what I was going to write about, and I didn't know what I was going to do. But I remembered a story about being young, where there was an object that I had at home that I hadn't looked at in quite a while. And I'll tell you that story now, which got me going. And I hope it inspires some of you to get going with writing, because I think we all have stories. And it doesn't take it's not too far away from here. So this story is set in the early 70s, and let me just tell you what it is. There was an object that I brought, and it was an old G.I. Joe doll. When I was 5 or 6 years old, my dad, every year at Christmas, we would come down to Simpsons. I know it's Saks now. I know it's Hudson's Bay. But it used to be called Simpsons, and as far as I'm concerned, it will always be called Simpsons. And we used to do 3 things. The first thing is we'd come and see the displays, the Christmas displays. And the second thing we would do is we would get our Christmas coats, or our coats for the winter. My dad was very proud of the fact that he would bring us to Simpsons to buy our coats. And the third thing we would do is we would go up to the 5th floor at the Simpsons building, and we would each pick out a toy. And I remember that year, I didn't know what I wanted to get, and my sister she just beelined and she got an easy bake oven. I think every young girl wanted one of those. It was I can't believe the CSA approved this thing. It was a 120-watt bulb that baked a cake, you know? So put that in the hands of a 5-year-old. But she got her easy bake. And I looked and looked, and then I found it. Oh, he was incredible. It was a G.I. Joe doll. And he was black. That's the one I picked out. And I brought him to my dad, and my dad took it from my hand, and he said, "No boy of mine is ever going to play with dolls." And a black one at that. And my mother got angry. And they started having some war of words and everything. And being the person that I am at 6 years old, I'm just desperately trying to find a toy that's going to be okay. And I saw this big Tonka truck, and I brought that to my father, and he tucked it under his arm and went to the cash register. And on Christmas Eve, I opened up my gifts, and there was my Tonka toy, and I went to bed that night, and under my pillow was another gift. And it was my G.I. Joe. And during my childhood, I had to play with this G.I. Joe without my father ever seeing it. Every Christmas, when my mother put away the tree, she would wrap up the G.I. Joe back in his box and hide it with all of the Christmas ornaments. My mother passed away when I was 28. And being the pragmatic, practical woman that she was, before she passed away, she had brought my sister and I into her bedroom and told us about these 2 drawers that she had, and the one up there was for my sister and the one down there was for me. And in it was photographs and a bit of jewelry and some things that she wanted us to have. And sure enough, shortly after my mom passed away, I went into that drawer and I opened it up, and there was an old Roots box. And I opened it up, and wrapped in tissue paper was my G.I. Joe. When my boy turned 5, I gave him that G.I. Joe. He hated it. He started crying, and it scared him. And I was quite confused. And later that day, I had come home from work. And G.I. Joe had been eaten by our puppy. and all that remained of him was his shirt. And that's what I brought to my writing class, and I wrote that story. And someone published it.